Friends in the papers on mainland 98.3 FM. My name is Mobola Sandra. We'll be looking through the major stories trending on the front pages of our dailies. And to give analysis to all of the stories that we're going to be looking at this morning, we have Saheed Fuhad joining in via the phone line. Good morning, Fuhad.
Yeah, good morning, Sandra. How are you doing?
I am well, thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
How are you keeping hope? How are you surviving? How are you, how's the Bubu Yaya treating you?
No. We're trying to survive. The survival instinct is intact, so we're pushing on.
As a true Nigerian.
Abby. What can we do?
Well, I think it's just very important that we just try to hold each other's hands. I mean, especially going with the video that, we had to look through yesterday. I know some people are a little bit, peeved looking at that particular video. But unfortunately,
you let the poor breathe?
Yes.
You let the poor breathe?
Yes.
By the Senate president?
Yes.
Sandra, I've always talked about the fact that the Senate president needs to understand that issues of national interest is not one to be joked with. I've expressed my reservations about the way he handles issues, and that one was completely nauseating, for want of a better word. Now, let the poor breathe. They said the poor should breathe.
It was like a mockery of some sort.
It was a mockery. No, it was a mockery, a complete mockery of the pains of the people. You even in the intonation, the mannerism, and you could see other senators also laughing and jeering. Let the poor breathe. Let the poor.
Do the A's say nay? The A's have it.
When I told people to go and read the poem "Building the Nation," I know what I'm talking about. These guys are overfed, and I probably think they are far from reality, completely far from reality. They don't feel the pains of the people, really. And so basically what they did yesterday was to make a mockery of the pains of the people. And I think they need to understand that people are actually really, really suffering. And they need to take it seriously.
All right, well, let's carry on with what we have. Major trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. I have the front page of the Guardian newspaper here with me, and the major headline is there. 60 days after, Tinubu toes familiar path as ministers may not resume till September. Fuhad, 60 days have passed, so...
Today is the last day.
Yes. Okay, so we should still hold on, or we should still hold on to the fact that something may or may not happen today.
No, I'm sure we'll have the list today. I'm hopeful. I'm sure if we have the Nation's newspaper,
yes, we do.
Which I think would have a better insight into the ministerial list. They already gave a number of names. As to the names that would appear on the ministerial list. Nothing different from what we've been
looking at, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But we are hopeful that at least, since the leader of the House has said that the list will be out today, so we're hopeful that we're going to have the list today. But the problem is this: the Senate is going on recess. The National Assembly will go on recess. The summer recess, and they won't be back until September. So that's why, because again, even if the names are read out today, we are not sure that confirmations will be completed today. All of the names on the list, that they will all be confirmed and screened today. So that's why the speculation. Yes, we may have the names today.
What does the law say? The law says that they must be, appointed at a certain time, or that the names must be submitted at a certain time.
You see, it's all semantics, Sandra. Immediately the name is forwarded to the National Assembly. It's assumed that, look, those are his appointments. But they cannot resume until they are confirmed by the Senate, the National Assembly, if you understand what I'm saying. So, but he has done his own part. He has made the names available. And so one would think that, well, he has at least fulfilled the constitutional requirements to appoint ministers. So it's now left for the National Assembly, to do the needful. But again, I don't know why the president has to wait till the last day. Again, we are not even sure the list would be out today. But again, we are hopeful that will be done. But because of the fact that the Senate is going on recess, and they won't be back until, I think, the first week of September, means that whatever names we have today, they may not be screened, approved and then resumed for duty until September. That's what it means.
Well, as it is, yesterday, some senators were said to be considering the options of suspending their yearly recess to screen and confirm ministerial nominees should the president transmit the list to the chamber today. All right. The deadline is actually today, July 27, and to transmit the list of the Senate for screening and confirmation. All right. So some senators are said to be considering the options of suspending their yearly recess. Is this something that you think that is actually possible?
It's possible. It's possible if they consider screening the ministers and confirming them something of national importance as against their yearly recess. Again, you can see the fact that our legislators are so very comfortable. One would think that how many days have they started? They're resuming the 10th National Assembly. They are going to go on a 2-month recess now. Almost 2 months recess. Because they have to resume in September, or let's say a month, almost like a month plus. And for doing how many days of legislative duty? But again, it's an annual thing. They are entitled to it. But what I'm saying is that it depends on the way they see the ministerial list. The fact that Nigeria needs a minister now. So if they see it as something more important than their yearly recess, then they may just take the option of cancelling their yearly recess, sit on this, screen properly, because again, we are hoping that we're not going to see the usual bow and go that we've always seen, or just bow and go. We're expecting that serious questions will be asked, serious national matters will be raised during the screening process before confirmation of any of the ministerial nominees. But we wait to see that. We don't even have the list yet.
All right, well, as it is now, sources at the Senate hinted that opinions are actually divided on whether or not the Senate should proceed on the recess. There is a category of senators who prefer that a formal request for reconvening the Senate for the purpose of screening of the nominees should be sent to individual senators, which will be at an extra cost to the Treasury. If senators are recalled from recess. Well, there's another category which is getting the support of the leadership of the Senate, wants the recess to be suspended so that screening can begin immediately. So expectations are high as it is now. But let's not forget, why there's this back and forth. Section 42 of the Constitution, as amended, states that A, the nomination of any person to the office of a minister for confirmation by the Senate should be done within 60 days after the date the president has taken the oath of office. Not less than 10% of persons appointed as ministers shall be women, provided that the president may appoint a minister at any other time during his tenure, and such appointment should also be subjected to the confirmation of the Senate. So I think, just as you mentioned earlier, semantics, confirmation of the Senate, submitting the list to the Senate, I think it just all works hand in hand. Today is the last date, as according to the Constitution. We'll see whether or not the Senate will move ahead with postponing their recess, or whether or not we may have to wait till September to have a constituted executive council. Now that's on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Moving on now, still on the front page of the Guardian, we have here NLC insists on August 2nd nationwide protest over rising hardship and anti-poor activities. That's anti-poor, just against the poor. And so what we have here, we have riders to that. Tinubu seeks more time to address labor grievances. Economy struggling. Strike not in nation's best interest, says NECA. And then we also have here Oshino kicks against Naira floating, cautions labor against strike. So we have the story here says hours after the National Association of Resident Doctors NARD declared a total and indefinite strike action, NLC has issued a 7-day nationwide strike notice beginning with a protest on August 2nd if the federal government does not reverse what it called anti-poor and anti-workers policy. So in a communique issued and signed by NLC President Joe Ajaero and General Secretary Emmanuel Gwaja, Labour lamented the crippling economic situation facing Nigerians and its attendant consequences of mass suffering, poverty, and angst pervading workers. So, Fuad, going on strike, 7 day, and yes, from the
protest or strike?
No, they're starting with a protest.
Protest, okay.
Yes, but then there'll be a 7 day nationwide strike after the protest on August 2nd. So, and then we also have the National Association of Resident Doctors already on an indefinite strike, or they declared an indefinite strike. All right, so putting all of this together, I thought we were now looking for a way forward rather than, a reversal.
Well, the president is calling for more time. He's saying he needs more time
to look into their grievances.
To look into all of the demands of labor. And I think if you read the story further, you see I don't know whether it's captured in this particular paper, but
he's just coming on
board.
Report
that he's just coming on board. A lot of the things he's being told, he's not aware of them.
Yeah.
He needs time to understudy.
As well.
Yeah. Okay. So he needs time to understudy. And I'm like, really? Again, Sandra, I'm hoping that the Labour would have a better strategy this time to deal with this particular matter. I know there's a court order already against the Labour going on strike. And as far as we know, the Labour has not been able to vacate that order. So, the last time out, that was what I said, that look, does the Labour have a strategy against the government going to court to get a court to stop them from going on any form of strike? It happened during the ASU strike. So if they don't have a strategy against that, and I think they should have a rethink about using strike as an option this time. But if they have a strategy against that, which I'm not going to say, I'm not a part of the labor union, so I'm just asking questions. But the reality is that we can see that the president and the presidency is in complete disarray as far as what to do to alleviate the suffering of Nigerians from subsidy removal is concerned. Even from the statement of the president, as quoted in the papers, it has shown that, look, there's a complete confusion. Yeah, if the president is saying that, look, he's still just new, he needs time to understudy what is going on, he needs time to really understand his demands, some of them are alien to him. But this is the same president and presidency that did not, take more time to understand this thing before taking action on this policy. In one breath, subsidy gone. In one breath, another breath, floating of the dollars and the naira. Another one, tax. Everything came up all at the same time. So if the president knew that, look, time is of essence in taking feisty decisions that will affect the people, why didn't he take his time before jumping into all of these policies? Nobody is saying that subsidy should not go. I've always said that. We probably got to the point where subsidy has to go. But I expected that, stakeholder consultation, there's a way you have to be methodical about these things. Here we are now. The Labour is locked down with the government. Nigerians are suffering. The governors are in the mix. The National Assembly is making a mockery of the pains of the people. And the president is calling for more time, which were all avoidable, Sandra, if we were methodical, meticulous, and detailed about what we're supposed to do with subsidy removal and its attendant effect on the people. So again, we are here, and I'm sorry, I'm still going to say what I've been saying. Nigerians to take care of themselves. It's obvious that there was no plan. And I asked Saheed the last time, Sandra, have you seen any surgeon anywhere in the world? Sandra, any surgeon anywhere in the world, no matter how big the issue is as an emergency, take somebody to the surgical operation room without preparing anesthesia or a recovery plan. Have you ever seen it before?
We'll be losing lives, son. We'll be losing.
Just go there, open up the thing, and there is nothing
we'll be
for
losing
working.
lives. We'll be losing. That's not.
So the same thing. We knew that subsidy payment had become a form of cancer, a tumor that needed to go. But you wouldn't just remove a cancerous tumor without anesthesia and a recovery plan of the patient. Here we are now. We are now looking for what to do. Meanwhile, the patient is bleeding. He's almost going to die now.
All right. Well, thank you very much. More details of that on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Moving on now, we also have here Nance gives government 7-day ultimatum to rescind fee hike in higher institutions. Okay, so still on that matter, we have here the National Association of Nigerian Students, NAN Zone D Southwest, yesterday warned the federal government and the state government to rescind the decision on fee hike in higher institutions, or it would ground economic activities in the region. They had a press conference at LALA in Ibadan. The Zondi coordinator, John Alao, said the student body was giving government a 7-day ultimatum that would elapse on August 1. So, Fuad, now, let's not forget that, despite or in spite of the fact that the presidency has debunked reports making rounds that the federal government had increased tuition fees in federal universities, that is sundry charges. That's what I'm quoting now. I'm quoting
sundry and discretionary charges.
Yes, that's what was increased. That's what Dele Alake said.
Kalo with our brain. You know when you try to play Kalo with whose brain? You leave tuition empty, but others you pad it. But somebody has to still pay. You don't understand what I'm saying. And I've seen supporters of government go, education is not cheap anywhere in the world, blah, blah, blah. And I say, look, okay, what exactly does the government now do to the people, give to the people, Sandra? Let us ask ourselves, we are being practical now. What exactly is the people enjoying from government in Nigeria? That you can say, oh, yes, the government is doing fantastically well on this one for the people. Just mention one, Sandra. The one that you can say.
Yeah.
Because yesterday I had to send something to the newsroom for them to help me print it out. Unfortunately, I think I left it in the office. I was looking at the Unilag fee. Yes, tuition is free, but there's a long list of other things that students now need to pay. Sports, these are almost about 8 of them. Totaling almost about 190,000 for medical students. I think about 100,000 plus for ordinary students and all of that.
So if they were now paying tuition, I can't even begin to imagine.
So what we see, when the issue of the student loan came up, that was the first issue I raised. That we have story to this. The Ali must go protest was as a result of a tuition fee introduced by government that led to increments and increases in tuition fees in universities across Nigeria. And we know what happened at that time. And I remember that ASU has also questioned the idea of bringing up a student loan, only for us to now later hear of increases in fees that students would have to pay. Look, call it whatever name, whether sundry or discretionary charges. The reality is that the students and their parents would have to pay these monies that were not there before. And so you ask, another question I raised when the issue of the student loan came up, which I also thought were questions we should have answered before the election, was the commitment of the government to funding our universities, the educational sector. That what exactly is the commitment of the government to properly funding our educational sector? We didn't get any, and that was why we were calling for issue-based conversation at that time. Here we are now, we're already seeing a pattern. The unity schools have been announced. Their fees have been increased, all the unity secondary schools. So again, we have gotten to a point where we're already seeing a pattern that the government may gradually be amping up funding of our schools. Again, these are policies that are coming too much and too hard on the ordinary people. Subsidy is gone. Tuition, whether free or not, fees that students would have to pay as federal universities are going up. Look, it is not just tuition is free, but they will have to pay something. So again, in the midst of all of that, the government does not have a clear idea, or does not even have an idea of what to do precisely to cushion the effect of all of this suffering. And in one embarrassing moment, you have the National Assembly making a mockery of the pains of the people.
Thank you very much, Fuhad. Now, in light of the announcement by NANS Zone D Southwest giving a 7-day ultimatum, there are demands that have been pushed forward. And I have here, 1, all plans to increase fees should be halted immediately, and those who have done so should revert to status quo. 2, we demand that the minimum wage should be increased by over 200%. 3, education should take 26% of the budget as recommended by UNESCO.
You want to kill the government? Yeah, that's a recommendation, but it's
4,
They are even struggling to do 5 or
Hold on.
7%. Yeah, I'm with you, Sandra. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yes. Okay. 4. Before conceiving the idea of increase in tuition, school management should tackle deficits in infrastructure, research, and retrain staff. And 5, Nigerian students will not bear the brunt of the failure of the ruling elites. So now, Fuad, very quickly.
I'm with you.
Over to you.
No, just
So,
1 minute.
those are the 5 demands.
Again, the government has told you they've not increased tuition. It's still free. But I know that it's just, that's just trying to play with the people's intelligence. You left tuition free, but you now added so many other things, so many fees. And by the time you now accumulate everything, the reality is that the students will still have to pay this money, and their parents. They are very poor parents who cannot send their children, to a lot of. You know what, Sandra? The conspiracy against the poor people in Nigeria when it comes to education is completely clear, unless we want to deceive ourselves. It started with killing the primary school education. Go to an average public primary school in Nigeria, Sandra. But you know what happened? There was a proliferation of private primary schools. So the rich to take care of their own by taking their wealth, to private primary school. It started with primary schools. Then later it graduated to secondary school. Sandra, I went to a public secondary school. But I'm sorry, I cannot take my child to a public secondary school again. The way they run it aground. I am sorry. The way they go to an average secondary school and see the rot and decay. Not the one that we went to. So again, proliferation of private secondary schools to take care of the children of the rich and affluent in the society. That same thing also happened to tertiary education. When we started seeing proliferation of tertiary institutions in Nigeria, private universities, and then what has now happened? Go to our major universities. Go to OAU, University OAU. Go to UI. Go to Unilag. Go and look at the level of decay of infrastructure in those schools. But the rich, the political elites don't care because they don't even send their children to those schools. They have the elite schools, private schools in Nigeria, where they pay millions of naira to take care of their own. And for those who don't want to keep their children in Nigeria, they send them abroad. So it is the same story that we have been talking about. What exactly does the government want to give back to the people? Infrastructure, zero. Health, zero. Education, zero. Power, zero. Nothing. Security, zero. So what else is the government giving back to the people?
All right. Thank you very much, Fuad. You're listening to Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. Now, let's move on now. Still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, we have here 1 killed, others injured as traders protest over sealed shops in Enugu. And very, very quickly, because we still have a lot of other stories to look at. So 1 person was killed, several others injured as traders in Ogbete main market, Enugu State, took to the streets yesterday in protest against the sealing of shops by the state government due to non-compliance with Governor Peter Mba's ban on sit-at-home. Fuad, what do you think? What would be your analysis of this particular one? I mean, there's sit-at-home, and people are scared and all of that, and then you gave the ultimatum that anybody that does not open their shop on on Monday, their shops will be sealed and all. But then, would you? I don't want to use the word fair, but what would you make of this decision by the governor of Enugu?
You have a governor who I understand his frustration. You understand? He's a governor who thinks that, look, for him to get it right in terms of governance, you can't have a Monday where people are not able to run their businesses. He's expressed his displeasure, his desire to end that embarrassing Monday sit at home in Enugu State. Other Southeast governors are also working very hard to end that. I think one of the things he has said was that, look, you just have to open your business if you close your business. Because I think what the governor has in mind is that, look, those that are closing their businesses after he has assured them of security, he has even assured them of protection and all of them, are actually the ones in silence solidarity with IPOB. I'm talking about the governor now. I think that is what is in there. That, look, for those that deliberately shut their businesses on Monday, those are the guys in silent solidarity with IPOB and the what's it called, the anarchy hiding away in Finland. Simon Epa, what's his name?
Simon Epa.
But the people who lock their shops will also argue that, look, they're only fearing for their life because they are not sure of the government protecting them. But what the government is saying is that, look, If other business owners can open their shop, why are you closing up? You are the ones indulging and aiding the directives to be, or directives of sit at home on a Monday in the southeast. But again, Sandra, whether the governor is right or not, or the people also have a right to exhibit their fears the way they've done, I would say it again, I'm going to repeat it. Unless there is silent solidarity with IPOB and these directives of sit at home, to end the sit at home is not going to be the job of the governor alone. The people must desire to end that sit at home. I said, who are these riffraffs? Who are these unknown government who to threaten them? They are not more than the people. If the people are hell-bent and they are sure that they want this sit at home to end, it will end, Sandra. Nothing would happen.
All right, thank you very much. Well, more details of that on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. Let's keep moving now. We also have here Niger coup. ECOWAS global community won't tolerate threats to democracy, says Tinubu. So the president, who happens to be the chairman of authority of ECOWAS heads of state and government, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of Nigeria, had a meeting with the Benin president as regards what's happening in Niger. I'm sure you are aware that they locked their president inside the house.
There's a coup happening there, yeah.
Exactly. So now the president of Benin is on his way to Niger to have some conversations or whatnot as regards that one. So as it is now, our president, the Nigerian president, Bola Tinubu, has rejected a reported coup attempt in neighboring Niger Republic and saying that ECOWAS will not tolerate threats to democracy. So following this, a meeting that he had, said ECOWAS mission has been sent to Niger to intercede in the attempted coup in the country. Okay, so more details of that on page 3.
I think we need to talk about it.
No, I'm with
very,
you. Yes, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, and we have to talk about it because again, leaders in Africa need to pay attention. There are 3 sides to this issue happening in Niger.
Okay.
As we speak now, the West African sub-region now has military coup in 4 countries. As it is, President Mohamed Bazoum of Niger is still being held at the presidential palace. First, it was seen as a form of mutiny because the presidential guards were the one that started it, not the regular army. They held him, they were holding him and his family at the presidential palace, so people thought, well, it was a form of mutiny from the presidential guard. But to a great extent, I think as at this morning, the report we have is that, look, the entire military seems to have backed these coup plotters, and it has become a coup. Well established that this is a coup against a democratically elected government. In fact, President Bazoum, this will be the first time that Niger as a country is having a successful transition from civilian to civilian government. The first ever. That the country has been plagued with coup and counter coup. That has been the story of Niger. So the first time that, they had a democratically elected transition to power. President Mohamed Bazoum has just been there for 2 years. And now this has happened. Again, Mali. There's already a military leader running Mali. The same thing Burkina Faso. The same thing Guinea-Bissau. Now, it is the same pattern we are seeing. It starts that way. The international community have been issuing statements. The United States is saying they are still with the president. They are going to offer him all the needed support. France has said that no, they are against it. So the usual rhetoric from the international community. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu just some few weeks ago, as if he had a vision or he was seeing something, I talked about zero tolerance to coup plots in Africa. And now this has just happened in his backyard.
Very close.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
When just next to his doorstep,
very close. Yes.
a coup has just happened. As it is, he has sent Niger to meet. All airspaces to Niger have been shot. They've also taken over. This is the question, Sandra. And Russia in Niger too? Because more concerned, it's completely unclear.
Yes, Mali.
To get support from them is the hardship that the people are suffering inside group, where it is now an excuse for the what will equity boys from power to me and Principe came to. Can we have that replay in Niger? We'll wait to see.
And that's all for the Guardian newspaper. We still have 3 other papers we need to quickly run through before the end of to the Nation newspaper. And what we have here, As the major headline is El Rufai, Wike, Oyetola, Alake, Fagbemi make ministers list. Edun Pate Adelabu Beta Edu also nominated by president. So, former Kaduna State ministerial nominee, legal luminary Latif Governor Adegboyega Oyetola and Ayade and so regard the facts.
The Senate chambers, we can take this to the. There's nothing. Is already, to the party and all of that. But again, I'm not surprised that we have a Wike. We have always talked about the fact that a Wike may eventually make that list. I think recently there was this misinformation as to he was shouting on the president, he didn't pass a DSS training and all of that. And I just laughed. The reality is that Wike may eventually make that list. Let's use may because nothing confirmed yet. So it's all going to be interesting. But I'm sure that, the screening itself will be very interesting, Sandra. The screening process at the National Assembly will be interesting. I want to see how the Senate will screen their yes on Wike. The PDP members in the Senate who are not the pro-Wike faction. I want to see the kinds of questions the article faction of the Senate who are PDP members and Labour Party, the kinds of questions they are going to throw at Wike, because I'm sure it's not going to have a bow and go moment. It's going to be a tough moment, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of back and forth. So, but we just have to wait to have this list and see what the National Assembly will do with its research, whether they are going to call it off to also have a screening process and then confirmation of minister.
All right. Thank you very much. It's quite an interesting list. Like you said, nothing is yet confirmed, especially their portfolios. What would they be, looking over? But then, I guess we'll get to know before the end of today whether or not the National Assembly will be going ahead with their recess or not. More details of that on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Let's keep moving now. We also have here APC NEC May OK Ganduje Bashiru, August 3rd. Why I Quit NWC by Lukman. So a special meeting of the NWC of the ruling APC will be held today, and the committee is most likely to reschedule the National Caucus and National Executive Council Executive Committee of the meetings of the party for Wednesday and Thursday. There's a lot that's going on in the APC, and wish them all the best. Moving on now, we also have here 5,000 illegal buildings demolished in Abuja. That's on page 4. Resident doctors begin strike. That's on page 3. We also have here reps to probe IOC's $4 billion debt to NDDC. And that is on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. So just very, very quickly, what that particular story is telling us is that the House of Representatives will investigate the refusal by international oil companies operating in the Niger Delta to establish a development fund for the region, as stipulated in the Niger Delta Development Commission Act 2000 as amended. So, and this is coming after Donald Ojogo accused the IOCs of owing NDDC about $4 billion. According to Ojogo, the indebtedness caused the EFCC to begin the debt recovery process. However, the EFCC has also continued to hold on to recovered money without remitting same to the NDDC. This is noted. So,
yes, is also holding on to money.
It's also holding on. The one that they've collected so far, they are not also dropping it. So there's a lot that's going on also in that particular area. All right. That's more details of that on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. Let's keep moving now. Okay. We also have on the front page of the Nation, DSS investigates scuffle in court over Emefiele. All right, that is actually a very interesting one. I think this is something that a lot of Nigerians have been talking about for quite a few days now. So what we have is that the Department of State Services yesterday said they have begun probing the brawl between their personnel and officers of the Nigerian Correctional Service at the Federal High Court in Lagos. and they have been under fire following videos showing how they roughened up an NCOS commander after the court granted suspended CBN governor bail. So as it is now, they are looking into, the DSS said that they have started, probing or investigation of what exactly happened, and to probe their personnel that was involved in that very, very, very embarrassing.
So those personnel acted alone, not on instruction. Is that what the DSS is telling us?
That's what they are saying. They said they are probing.
Okay, they should continue to probe. It's fine.
So they're saying now that this is, while noting that the personnel from both agencies exhibited undue overzealousness. The service has further initiated detailed investigation into the matter. This is with a view to identify the role played by specific persons, as well as undertaking disciplinary actions if necessary, and drawing some lessons going forward. For emphasis, the DSS has not broken any laws in handling the Emefiele case, despite efforts by some elements to skew the narratives to the contrary. The service has since alerted the public of sinister plots to discredit its leadership. And that is coming from Afunaya, what's his name? Dr. Peter Afunaya, spokesman of the DSS. So that's...
I think the DSS should limit its own probe to its own officials. I think the correctional service would also probe its own officials, because I can see they are lumping everything together. I think because we saw misbehavior on both sides, again, but I think to a large extent, most of the wrongdoings that we saw, most of the embarrassing situation came from the side of the DSS. The way they were behaving, more like a Gestapo kind of gangsters, and even the way they were dressed and all of that, but I think they can probe their own officials and see what happened. Well, I would also expect the correctional service to also probe their own officials. Unfortunately, the two bodies actually report to the National Security Advisor, who also reports to the presidency. All of them actually report to the president. And so eventually I think the presidency needs to take a decision going forward. We are not happy seeing our security operatives behaving like that. It is not a banana republic. The country governed by law, and we should behave like that.
All right, thank you very much, Fuhad. That story is on page 5 of the Nation newspaper, and that's all we can take from the Nation this morning. Let's quickly move on now to the Punch. The major headline there: Tinubu pleads for more time as NLC issues strike notice. And the writer says presidency meets NLC TUC over palliatives delay. Labour insists on Wednesday protest. Resident doctors strike grounds hospitals. Federal government may enforce court order against Labour. And the story is on pages 2 and 12.
There's already a court order, and it has not been vacated.
On the Punch newspaper, pages 2 and 12. All right, we also have here mass burial. #EndSARS coalition demands DNA mapping and compensation. So very quickly, for just a minute, please. This story, is just pointing at the fact that #EndSARS coalition is a group. They are demanding that, if there can be, they are demanding DNA mapping on the 103 bodies, so that, some people can come forward and reclaim, to make it easy or to make it possible for some, family of these people to come forward and pick up the bodies of their loved ones, and also some sort of compensation for what they have gone through, the trauma they have gone through for the past 3 years. Just very quickly.
The question is, are there families who are laying claim to these dead bodies? That's the question. Are there people out there who are still saying they have missing loved ones as a result of the NSAS protest? Especially at the Lekki toll gate.
But there are bodies, so that means these people have family members. The question, what the demand is that can there be some sort of DNA mapping so that it can be known whether or not people who maybe they have lost and found, or they have missing persons in their family.
It's almost 2 years, Sandra. It's almost 2 years, Sandra.
Yes.
And if you do DNA mapping, the question is, what are you going to match it with? It's not as if somebody is saying that, oh, I lost a child during this process, and I don't know, is any of the child, if there's anybody within that age range among the dead bodies, I'm ready to do a DNA mapping, so we try to match it with myself and see whether I can say this is my child or my relative or something.
So you're saying that the mapping has to be, it has to, match with somebody, and who exactly are they going to match with?
That's the question. That's the question I'm asking.
All right.
That's just the question. Are there families out there? Are there people out there who have missing loved ones who are ready to do a DNA mapping and matching on these dead bodies? It's 2 years. And I remember that there was a publication by the Lagos State government then
White people?
That anybody that has a missing loved one should come to their morgue to check whether they have missing people among the dead bodies. It's 2 years that these bodies have been there. Again, I'm not questioning their demand. I'm just trying to, make sense of it, whether it is even possible after 2 years.
Well, thank you very much. Valid questions. But more details of that on page 12 of the Punch newspaper. We also have Daredevil daylight robbers return to Lagos streets. That's on pages 4 and 5.
I'm not surprised, Sandra.
Yes, I mean, let me not. Okay, let's just move on from that. Moving on now, still on the front page of the Punch. Very quickly, we also have Ahmed Musa. Why I'm selling fuel at 580 naira per litre. And that story is on page 30 of the Punch. So, Super Eagles captain says he reduced the price of PMS to help alleviate the hardship on Nigerians occasioned by the hike in the price of the petroleum product. I mean, is that, should we say that's,
yes, commendable.
Okay.
We need to commend him for doing that. Just being selfless. It's very, very patriotic. I think he has always helped his own people. I've seen him giving scholarship, giving awards to people, giving donations to schools. A lot of these footballers, in trying to give back to the society, do things like this. I think Vito Osimhen was back in the country too. A number of football stars. Awoni was in Kwara State. So I think we need to commend Ahmed Musa for trying to help his own people. When we have individuals from their own private money doing this, then how much more the government that is not yet to put anything on the table. And then we have the National Assembly. Let the poor breathe. Let the poor breathe. I think we need to tell the Senate President, I'm sorry, it's an embarrassment. You should not be joking with the pains of the people. Even if they are overfed, I think they should be a bit discreet about what they do.
It's all right. It's all right. That's a very painful situation. I have a message here on Facebook that says the legislature has turned Nigerians to jokers. We
saw the video yesterday, Sandra. What I said about it.
It's very
completely embarrassing.
It's very.
And they were all laughing and jeering. When you are overfed, sometimes the thinking pattern becomes a bit problematic.
Was a mockery of some sort. Unfortunately, we've run out of time now. I still have so many other stories. I wanted us to look at the fact that the Senate is working on extradition of Simon Ekpa, trying to work with the Finnish government as if
they can achieve that. It's a good one.
Yeah, and that is on page 7 of the Punch. Also wanted to also look through a few stories from Vanguard newspaper. They also Vanguard also has a list, or some names. That whether or not they are on the list, we don't know. But then stories on page 5 of Vanguard newspaper. And also still on that Simon Ekpa story, Senate demands Ekpa's extradition as Ohaneze moves against Asari Dokubo. That is on page 11 of Vanguard newspaper.
The president needs to call Asari Dokubo to order. He needs to rein him in. He's becoming an embarrassment even to the president.
Ever since the visit, I think
he's just all out there making statements and egg banging and this is not a banana republic where you have non-state actors threatening people, threatening an ethnic group. The president needs to rein him in, and that's supposed to even be part of the job of the DSS because it's about national security. Right. You can't have an individual with a militia threatening an ethnic group and threatening the whole nation.
We've run out of time.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thankfully, today is open mic, so we can continue so much more on every one of the conversations or any one of the trending stories. So please stay with us. This is Milan 98.3 FM. We'll take a break from now. We'll resume by 8:40 for Milan Focus. It's open mic, so stay tuned.